Hello, I'm back with another video tapping in, and I'm running with some more inspiration and insight that's been occurring to me over the last day or two, kind of as a spin-off or a series of this concept of indications and warnings, both favorable and unfavorable, but I would say maybe more so unfavorable in general terms. Um, uh, and it's similar to the series that I did about violence, and that I hadn't actually intended it as a series when I first put it forward, but it did come as inspiration, and then I had follow-up ideas to clarify things that I said, but also things to run with inspiration off of content that I was sharing that was somewhat new to me, expressing it as much as to an audience, even though I'm speaking from a certain experience with that. But I wanted to run on with a couple more very serious indications within behavior when we're dealing with other people, and these are this. So far, I've listed off mocking, theft, dishonesty, choices and maneuvers within speech. And then I'm going to go a little bit further with that within choices and maneuvers within speech, where the author, Arthur Avalon, he states that um, to anything that has motion in this universe, anything that another word for motion would be like kinetic, and anything that is kinetic has something that's static. That means like still as a support. So you can imagine like a car going down the road. The car is moving, yet the road is stationary and static. And in a certain very deep sense, the actual tire that is rotating is also somewhat static. And if you take a car moving down the road, the road is static. The wheel is actually in a fixed position, and then the car itself, the conveyance, it's actually also static. As you are inside of a car, you and that car are static, and you perceive the road to be kinetic, and bystanders on the road perceive you to be kinetic. So it's actually kind of a strange phenomenon that's actually happening when motion occurs, and it can be seen in a car. And if you think about it from the way I listed that, it's kind of deeper than it might seem. But within a maybe even more sophisticated and broad sense is our very experience as human beings, and that our experience, it can range all the way from fixed, crude, gross matter in stationary or terrestrial things on the earth, that like a tree or a rock or a road or so, that is fixed and stationary. And then our very physical frame and body, which is also more so fixed and stationary, all the way up to our emotional, intellectual, and then even spiritual or ethereal essences and traces of our experience that are all part of the experience on the very broad range and dimensions of experience, similar to the way that reality it exists in broad, fixed capacity up, like the earth, all the way up to finer and finer dimensions of like I've said in other videos, radioactivity, energy, and then some people would probably go to saying like ether as another element that is and I think sound exists within, is a part of ether, that is way past what I can articulate. But just to say that the different dimensions of our experience, they range in sophistication, but also in scope of thickness, or they get finer and finer. So our very experience as human beings is similar to that. But one thing within all of our human experience that might be the if our experiences are the kinetic, there's a kinetic dimension of our experience, being what we do, think, and feel. The static support of that, which is also sophisticated and as transcendent and mobile as our experience, would be our words. The words that are expressed between human beings are kind of like the backdrop or the static support, even though they're not necessarily static, and they're sophisticated and they're conceptual, and they're, in a certain sense, they transcend what we know of as reality. I'm going a little bit off into the weeds with this, but that very author Avalon, he talks about something being the logos, which is logos is it's almost like a philosophical concept, but it is a living reality, which is logos is the intermingling and the coalescing and overlap between thought, thought and verbal form, or idea in verbal form. And it has, if you go into higher dimensions of philosophy, even going into a little bit of theology where those overlap, it has been expressed that logos, or idea in speech, communicating and enunciating ideas, is actually the premise and foundation of what we know of as the universe. And he says that what we experience as electricity is it's a function of what is known as logos. So our words are as forceful and kinetic as what we understand as electricity, and are not entirely different. Just to give you an idea of how profound and potent words actually are. But then with that, I would almost say that words are like the static support of our experience, and they really fashion, mold, and a lot of our experiences, they can't actually be commenced, or the dynamics between people cannot be such that facilitate our experience without what the relationships and dynamics that are facilitated with our words and our choices in words. Just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from with how significant words are. So then as part of that, and then as another, so the gestures and the stances that we assume in speech, and then also our choices in speech, is from vocabulary to intonation, to judgment. The finer aspects of our speech are really quite significant, and fashion and mold our experience, and as such can have life and death consequences, as it has been stated in places such as the holy text known as the Holy Bible, that life and death is in the power of the tongue. And that's not a that's really not a metaphor if you appreciate it on a subtle or a profound level. But with that, I wanted to talk about another, within speech, something that is very significant is profanity. Now, profanity doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what are known as cuss words, curse words, or things that are what we would consider indecent. Profanity is more so introducing or broaching topics, statements, and gestures in a setting or in a circumstance that is not suitable, or that is neither suitable nor stimulating. So most people, we can all, I think most people at some point in their life have been intrigued, turned on, or inspired by human sexuality. That's something that is fundamental to us and that we all enjoy on a level. However, in an appropriate context and setting where it's both stimulating and beneficial, and so if you were to broach that subject, or that those gestures in a setting that's not suitable, either that's neither stimulating nor suitable, at this point you're now introducing profanity. And then it's also, this might not seem related, but it's similar with financial discussions of finance. Both sexuality and finance, as though most people would probably consider those as to be worldly topics. However, sexuality and finance can often be a liminal threshold between life and death on many planes, and I think you can maybe run with that and what that would mean to you. But we come into this life by means of by way of sexuality, but then also we can experience great pain and suffering, and life can also be lost around issues of sexuality, whether that be sexually transmitted diseases, realities attendant of childbirth and child rearing, and then also social dynamics and stigmas, and what is invoked around sexuality, such as maybe fighting between persons, which can actually, there have actually been wars between nations that have been the impetus had something to do with it could be a sexual encounter between two people, as extreme as that would sound. But just to say that sexuality is quite profound, and then so is finance, and that because finance is we think about finance in terms of we're taught representative currency as a standard of value. However, what finance is on a deeper level can amount to relationships, because a lot of your financial health and your ability to access opportunities, sustain opportunities, and benefit from opportunities, it has to do with your relationships leading into opportunities, during opportunities, and as you leave opportunities, and how that redoubles and reflects upon you. So there's a profound connection between finance, relationship, sexuality, speech. And then as such, I think that if we were to say that there was one arbiter of life and death, it would probably be whatever we consider as our higher power or Lord. So therefore, considerations of that magnitude cannot be divorced from what we know of as speech, sexuality, finance, and relationships. So then I'm getting ready to tone this down. But what I want to say is that sometimes you'll find, as you're dealing with people, and I've encountered this as an adult on a lot of levels, and even before I was an adult, there are often times where people can broach or introduce discussions or influence on the issues of relationship, sexuality, or finance in such a way as to have an influence upon you by them broaching those subjects, and such that you are either uninspired around them, your confidence is injured around those experiences and discussions, and then also you are influenced in such a way, perhaps peripherally and subconsciously, in addition to having your esteem affected, to where you then further make blunders for yourself or other people based on those influences that you were exposed to on those subjects being broached in a profane manner, outside of propriety and what is truly stimulating, such that I think no one, we can all say we all have the freedom of speech, but no one can really speak for what we know of as a higher power or Lord. And then similarly, I think that no one can really speak for finances on a certain level, as how another person experiences finances or even relationships, if that hasn't been if that hasn't been asked for or sought out. So I just wanted to put that forward, that a lot of times when people are broaching, are really the subject of finance really shouldn't come up around a lot of people, and then even in a certain sense, it's similar with sexuality, where that shouldn't come about unless it's in a natural setting and venue. And really the finer aspects of like class and even finance, there's a saying that money talks, and at a certain level that's actually healthy, like in relating to people, to where the deeper concerns or aspects of what we have going on financially, and then maybe even personally and within relationships, it goes better unstated, and unless there's an actual real a circumstance that invokes it being discussed equitably, and then even still it's very touchy and sensitive. So I just wanted to say that when you're around different people, as a red flag and indication, these subjects, they shouldn't really they shouldn't become prominent unless it's really fitting to a situation. And a lot of times when they do, it's from, on some level, you're being disrespected by another person, whether consciously or unconsciously, for them to broach and riff on those subjects in your presence. So I just wanted to put that as another angle and a reference for when dealing with people, as something that's quite significant to be aware of when it comes about dealing with people. Mocking, theft, dishonesty, and then gestures within speech, and then also subjects within speech, not the least of which sexuality, finance, and relationships. So I hope this serves someone well, and this is again just to make us better, competent, and equipped human beings so that we can find expression and also venues to employ our expression and maybe experience reciprocity of value with other people while bringing our best and engaging the best of other people. So I hope that can be of value to someone, and I'm going to sign off with this one.